Hazbin Hotel is cringe. I've previously described the show as feeling like it was written by one of those theater/band kids that we all went to high school with. You know the ones I'm talking about. Built their entire personality around Tumblr and thought nothing was funnier than talking about sex and swearing. This show is really representative of that ancient Tumblr millennial archetype, and you just really don't see that anymore. Tumblr used to be the place where you draw your webcomic, become a social activist, develop an eating disorder, and get addicted to porn, but the kids nowadays just do all that on Twitter. But despite all the cringe, I actually really enjoyed the first season of this show. I was able to look past the many issues I had with it simply because it was charming. I liked the art style, the world building was super engaging, the concept itself was interesting, and it had some really great musical numbers. It felt like a legitimate passion project from someone who is obviously incredibly talented in creating a compelling world and filling it with creative characters. And even with all the critiques I had of the show back in the video I made on season 1, the enthusiasm from the creators was infectious, and watching a show made with true passion was so refreshing, especially with how common it is nowadays for mainstream media to feel so soulless and hollow. I was legitimately excited for the new season of the show. I've always believed that the most important part of creating is the passion, and considering the show already had plenty of that, with improvements on the writing and pacing of the show, as well as some smaller critiques I had, this show had the potential to be great. So now that season 2 of Hazbin Hotel is here, and I've watched all of it, did it live up to my expectations? No. No, it did not. Now don't get me wrong, I still liked this season, but I came in expecting it to be better than the first season, make those improvements and create something great. Instead, this season was kinda worse than the first one, and with my expectations so high, it really left me disappointed. Now here's the thing, they definitely did make a lot of improvements, specifically to the pacing and narrative. One of my biggest complaints about the first season was the pacing. There were so many moments where a character would completely change their mind on something in the span of like 5 minutes, or a major plot point set for the distant future would all of a sudden be happening in the next episode. The worst of it for me was when Charlie finally met up with her dad, Lucifer, who's been a deadbeat and barely talked to her for years at this point, and she clearly holds a lot of resentment for him because of it. Then they have one single musical number and all of a sudden they're besties again and Charlie is totally over her feelings. There were a ton of moments like that throughout season 1, and I assumed it was due to the fact that the show was trying to cram such a large story into only 8 20-minute episodes and they didn't really know if they'd have more seasons, so I was hopeful it would be improved upon in the next season now that they don't have to rush as much considering it was renewed through season 5. And this was one of the areas where the show improved a lot. The overarching storyline is continuously built up throughout the season and character development is much more natural. Part of that comes from the fact that each of the episodes are about 5 minutes longer than the previous season's episodes, and the last episode is a solid 15 minutes longer, coming in at 38 minutes, which is kinda insane, but I definitely feel like that was one of the biggest improvements of the show this season. One thing that was already great in the first season that I was surprised they improved upon in the second was the character designs. There are just so many random background characters that are only on screen for a few seconds that have super cool designs. You see them and immediately begin wondering what their story is, how did they end up in hell, all that kind of stuff. I really think this is Vivzie Pop's greatest strength, her ability to make these interesting characters that give you hints towards their past and what they're like just from looking at them. Another improvement was the animation, which at times was genuinely super impressive. Compared to the first season, characters are much more expressive, every scene feels like they put a lot more emphasis on the little details that really make it feel more lively, and I was surprised at how great the action sequences were. They're literally better animated than some major action animes I've seen. But that's about where the improvements end. Now for the record, I have seen essentially 0 opinions about this season online. I've intentionally tried to avoid them because last season I went in pretty clueless except for some criticisms I saw online, but this season I've seen basically nothing. So any opinions I give on this season are completely my own. I was not influenced by any narratives that anyone has tried to spread, because I assume people are trying to spread narratives about this show because it's Hazbin Hotel and everyone either loves or hates it. The majority of the issues I had from the first season are still present. For one, even though the narrative structure improved a lot, the writing and dialogue are still pretty awful at times. I'll talk more about this as we get to specific scenes throughout the season, but for the most part, all of my criticisms from the first season still hold up about the writing. Now, I don't inherently have a problem with excessive swearing. I mean, my favorite show is South Park after all, but watching this season has made me realize that I think the reason this show has garnered such a reputation for its constant profanity is because of the way it's used. Countless times in this show, it feels like the swearing is meant to be the punchline. Characters put so much emphasis on these words that it just feels unnatural. There's nothing more cringe than when you can tell someone is trying really hard to be funny and just isn't, and that's the vibe I get from a lot of the dialogue in this show. Now don't get me wrong, there were still funny moments throughout the season, but it was never from one of these jokes where the punchline is that the character said shit fuck or whatever variation they come up with. And that's another thing. It would be different if this hyper vulgarity was reserved for a specific character like Angel Dust, but the problem is that every character talks like this. It makes it way more difficult to have distinct characters when everyone talks like a kid who just learned how to swear. Not to mention the mix of time periods and backgrounds everyone comes from. It would make the show way more interesting if these characters at least somewhat reflected their actual backgrounds instead of everyone sounding like your average band kid. Now, as for the story itself, again, it was definitely more coherent than the first season, but there were still so many moments that were so contrived and made me feel like everyone in the show is a dumbass who had no clue what they're doing. And as for the ending, my God. I've talked about how corny this show can be at times, but for the most part, it was never a big deal because it felt intentional, but this ending, man, it was painful. And trust me, I will share my full thoughts on the ending as well as all the issues I had with the story as we go through the video. Now, I had a whole part written for this intro about how, in general, the musical numbers in this season were worse than the first season as well. My point was basically that while there were still some great songs, there were a lot more forgettable ones, but after a rewatch of the show, I honestly take this back. There are still a lot of bangers, and I'm not going to be criticizing them as much, but at the end, I'm going to rank all of the songs from worst to best as I did in my previous video. So that's enough about my general thoughts about this season. Let's go through and talk about my thoughts on each episode. So the season opens up with a reminder of what happened at the end of the last season, and of course, it wouldn't be Hazbin Hotel without saying fuck in the first 10 seconds.
Tonight's top story. What the fuck is going on at the Hazbin Hotel?
Now, immediately you can see the huge improvement in animation with all these characters, and this is something that I thought would kind of be reserved for the first episode because in general, shows tend to do that where they make the first episode really well animated and then it decreases over time. But honestly, the animation was great throughout the entire season, and there was never any noticeable dip in quality. The hotel is absolutely packed with new members, not because they actually care about getting redeemed, but because they just want to kill angels. And speaking of angels, Angel Dust is still Angel Dust, as we immediately find out.
And something called a harder daddy.
Oh, that one's for me. My favorite drink and life motto.
You know, like I said last time, I like Angel as a character, but his dialogue is just like the worst in the whole show. They also include a line from this guy in the crowd.
I've seen all his movies. I've jerked off to all his movies.
And honestly, even though this joke kind of has the typical Hazbin Hotel sex is funny sense of humor, I actually thought this was kind of funny because it was so on the nose that it felt very self-aware. They do bits like this very occasionally throughout this show, and honestly, they're some of the funniest ones in my opinion. Like, it immediately reminded me of the bit from season 1 where Sir Pentious is buying everyone drinks and the one guy says this.
Another drink. I love alcohol.
I don't know, these kind of jokes just work better for me because it almost feels like the show is making fun of itself. And maybe I'm giving it too much credit and that's not what it was meant to be at all, but that's what I think of it. Charlie is in her room crying over Sir Pentious because if you'll remember, they killed off the literal best character in the show back in the end of season 1. Now, Charlie in this season is going to be a very interesting character. Like in the first season, she was always very hyperactive and kind of all over the place, but to some extent, she still felt pretty grounded. In this season, though, Charlie is literally just SpongeBob. She's just so manic and over the top all the time and incredibly stupid that it is kind of insane how she's meant to be the leader in this season. Now, obviously, she's supposed to be on edge because she's grieving and she kind of got her friend killed and like a bunch of other people killed, but even so, man, is she a lot in this season. So then we get reintroduced to Vox, who didn't really do anything last season, but will become the main villain in this season. Now, the first thing about him I want to say is that his voice actor is amazing. He plays this role so perfectly. This line, for example, was just delivered about as good as it could be.
This is the news, honey. If we aren't scaring people with the title alone, it's not worth running.
And with that line, you may notice something else, and that's that there is weirdly a lot of social commentary in this season, specifically about the news. I never really expected this show to have a lot of social commentary. I definitely expected more like philosophical commentary about redemption and all that kind of stuff, but this season is absolutely full of talking about the media and fake news and all that kind of stuff. It's like arguably the most important part of the season because it's the plot device that pushes the entire story forward. Now, obviously, this show doesn't say anything super insightful or revolutionary about what they're trying to say. I just thought it was kind of interesting that this show decided to delve into a social commentary angle. But Vox is obviously plotting something because he wants to twist this story to be more in line with their agenda, and at this point, we don't know exactly what their plan is. We also get reintroduced to Cherry Bomb, who was introduced late in the last season as Sir Pentious's rival, and in the last episode, Sir Pentious sacrificed himself to try to save her and everyone else and kissed her. So So now she's feeling pretty conflicted about all that, like why did he do that? Did he actually love her? All that kind of stuff. And an interesting note about Cherry Bomb is that she's like the only character in the show that it feels genuinely appropriate for her to talk like how everyone talks in the show. And by that I mean the excessive unnecessary swearing that everyone does in the show. And I think the reason is that she has like this punk, rowdy Australian vibe to her. And stereotypically, that's kind of exactly how you would expect a rowdy Australian to sound. So for her, it actually works, but it just doesn't work with anyone else in the show.
I just wish I could see him again. To punch him in the face for dying and shit.
So then they introduce a new character named Baxter, who is like an anglerfish design, and I actually really like his design. I think it's pretty cool. But his character is literally just the replacement for Sir Pentious. He's also an inventor. And the show itself actually recognizes that. They make a lot of jokes about the fact that he's basically just Sir Pentious again. But I don't really know if that makes it better. I feel like just acknowledging the fact that you're making the same character again doesn't really change the fact that you're doing that, and it's kind of lazy. But anyways, so then we segue into our first musical number, and Charlie's voice actor is sounding Disney princess as ever, and that's one of the things I really like about her voice actor. Now this opening number is super long. Charlie has her own part that's kind of like Happy Day in Hell from the first season. All right, so this is normally the part where I'd include the song, but the copyright is super strict with the show, so I decided I'm just gonna sing all the songs myself, and I apologize in advance. All our guests are family. That's the Hazbin guarantee. And did I mention it's free? And then the song completely switches up, and the V's have a part where they speedrun the life of showbiz, taking a girl off the street, making her a star, and then discarding her immediately after. And then after that, both parts join together, and it kind of becomes a medley. I think the V's part of the song was probably the highlight for me. Watching them speedrun through the life of a star and how they're just abused in these industries was pretty funny, and musically, this song was pretty good all around. Now, of course, this is Hazbin Hotel, so it had its fair share of cringy lines, but overall, it was pretty solid. But watching Charlie get pestered by the press and all these new members, it really goes to show something I was talking about earlier, which is just how great some of these character designs are. Like, for example, this goat looking girl that's very like demonic looking, and the tree girl, it's like, it makes you just wonder what happened to them to get to this point and look like this in hell. And the fact that they're just essentially throwaway characters goes to show the care put into world building in this show. Luckily for Charlie, who is clearly not media trained and cracks under the smallest amount of pressure from the press, her father Lucifer swoops in to save her. Meanwhile, Vox is scolding Velvet and Valentino about keeping their public image up, and he specifically mentions how Valentino has been publicly abusive towards Angel Dust, to which they show this cute little montage of Val assaulting Angel Dust.
You're obsessed with me.
Now, personally, I thought this was super weird. I'm one of the very few people who thought they actually portrayed the abusive dynamic between Angel Dust and Valentino very well in the last season, because anytime it was shown, it was handled as the very serious subject matter that it is, and they weren't trying to make jokes about it. So for them to then use this abuse as like a slapstick comedy routine with wacky sound effects while it was so serious before, it felt a little tone deaf and kind of weird. Like, obviously, I'm not the type of person that's gonna say you can't make a joke about something, but in this case specifically, when they already were taking it so seriously, it feels just completely out of place to make this a comedy bit all of a sudden. I don't know, I kind of just feel like it undermines the abuse maybe a little bit, but whatever. So Vox reveals to the other V's that he plans to use media to start an uprising in hell against heaven. All the while, Charlie is busy talking to her dad about how she misses her mom, and hints at the fact that Lilith was leading some kind of revolution of her own. Now, if you remember, Lilith was a mystery all last season. She just disappeared one day apparently, and at the end, they revealed that she was working with the angels for some reason that we don't know yet. And I mean, we don't even know what happened, like if she just left one day, or if she was forced out, or what. We literally know nothing about it, and spoiler alert, they're not going to answer any of that in this season. So Vaggie is busy trying to pick a new name, because if you don't remember, that's the name that Adam gave to her back in the last season. And you know, now that I think about it, this doesn't even really make any sense, because Adam just gave her that name randomly, but she was on Earth at one point. Like, she was just a normal angel. It's not like she was born in heaven. So why doesn't she just use like her actual name from Earth? That was basically a nickname that Adam gave her, it seems like. So did she forget her real name? I don't really understand. So while she's busy brainstorming new names, Husk makes an interjection, and I actually thought it was kind of funny.
How about Baggeson?
Maybe you should lose the vag part in these names.
So then Charlie makes a big announcement that the Hazbin Hotel is meant for people who want to be redeemed, not for people who just want to kill angels. And of course, because of that, literally everyone leaves except for Baxter, because he's the new Pentious.
So is he like the new Pentious?
No!
I also thought it was kind of weird that, like, for this joke, everyone just turned on Nifty all of a sudden, but, like, Charlie was literally calling him the new Baxter not even 5 minutes ago. I don't know, whatever. So back with the V's, we find out that Vox was actually a cult leader on Earth, which is why he wants to take over heaven, because he just craves that power of feeling like a god. That leads us into our next musical number with Vox singing about how he wants to take over heaven. Once we get up there and snag that angelic throne, our unholy trinity could make their realm our own. Now, for so long, I kept thinking about this song because it reminded me so much of another song and I could not put my finger on it, but I finally realized that the melody and piano chords and all that is almost exactly like the song Welcome to the Internet by Bo Burnham, so much so that I'm almost certain it was pretty directly inspired by that song. And one thing I talked about a lot in my previous Hazbin Hotel video is the fact that this show is very heavily inspired by South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and I think this song is another example of that because in the South Park movie, Satan has a song called Up There, where he laments about life on Earth and how it could be. And I mean, this song is pretty much the exact same thing, just with a little bit of a more sinister tone to it. So yeah, just figured I'd mention that because, of course, I cannot go a single video without mentioning South Park. But overall, I do really like this song. I think the melodies are very pretty. And in general with the show, I feel like the more Broadway musical inspired songs tend to be the better ones, and this one definitely has a lot of that. So I think this was another really solid song. So then we get to see how the V's have spun this Hazbin Hotel story and how they're basically slandering the hotel, all the while offering sanctuary from the potential threat of Charlie Morningstar, which I thought was pretty funny.
I know I'm scared. And everyone else should be too.
Bring sanctuary to all those affected by Charlie Morningstar's actions.
And just before the episode ends, Emily, the younger Seraphim, comes through a portal to give a huge exposition dump to Charlie, telling her that Penchus is in heaven and that redemption essentially is possible. Charlie, being completely overwhelmed with this information, begins screaming and the episode ends. So that was the first episode. It was mostly a lot of setup for the coming episodes, but overall, it was a decent episode, so let's go ahead and get into episode 2. So now everyone in heaven is totally freaking out because a soul has never been redeemed before and they have no clue what to do about it. This is just more of an example about how much I love the character designs. I'm kind of a sucker for biblically accurate stuff, and all these like weird abstract characters are super cool and I like it a lot. Lute is super pissed off with her new Sekiro prosthetic because they killed Adam when they went down there last time, and she also just kind of has a disdain for all the people in hell in general. But as they are interrogating Sir Penchus about how he got to heaven, we get introduced to God, I guess. They call her the speaker of God, so I don't know if that means that she's like actually God or just speaking for God. I think her design is pretty cool. I like how it's kind of owl themed, but she wants to hear Sir Penchus' story about how he ended up here. So we then get a flashback of Sir Penchus as a femboy living in the real world. And something that surprised me a lot about this season is how often they use just straight up flashbacks to explain someone's backstory on Earth. And it is pretty cool to learn their backstories, but I kind of wish they did it in a little more subtle way. Like earlier when we learned that Vox was a cult leader on Earth, I kind of wish they did that more often and used dialogue to explain these backstories instead of just straight up showing us, but that's more me just nitpicking. But it turns out that Sir Penchus was a bit of a voyeur. He liked to watch people go about their day because he was pretty lonely and it made him feel more connected to the world. And at one point he watched a woman get murdered by what is essentially Jack the Ripper. And just a quick little side note, the first thing I thought when I saw that shadow was that it looked a lot like the outline of Zestral. Now I don't think it actually is Zestral because Zestral is supposed to be like super old based on how he talks, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was revealed to be like connected somehow in the future. And Sir Penchus knew who the dude was. He said it was a client of his who had a lot of power, but he didn't say anything, and the dude went on to kill 5 more women. And because of that, that's how he ended up in hell. Now this kind of confirms my theory I had in the last video about him being a snake because he betrayed people, hence why when he sacrificed himself for his friends, he was redeemed because he was loyal to them. But also it seems maybe a little harsh to end up in hell just for not saying anything about this. Like obviously it was wrong for him to not say anything, but at the same time he was obviously very scared for his own life considering how powerful this dude was. It kind of gave me Jigsaw vibes, like when he put someone in a trap for smoking or evading taxes or something. But the speaker of God says that he was redeemed, and of course Lute gets pissed off about that, and she starts arguing with her about it like, bro, that's literally supposed to be God. I think they know what they're talking about. I don't know why you would even argue with them. But I do think it was kind of funny that Abel points out the pun that took me a really long time to notice in the first season.
Oh, I get it now! That is so clever! like a serpent. Adorable.
But she just keeps going and says that as head of the Exorcist army, they should do something, to which she is quickly shut down and told that Abel is actually the Nepo hire for leader of the Exorcist army now. Sarah also finally admits that Sir Pentious was redeemed and redemption is indeed possible. We then get a random shot of Lilith in some nondescript ethereal area before she exits for the entire rest of the season. So Emily is showing Sir Pentious around heaven, and it made me realize that Emily is literally just Charlie, but gray.
I am determined to make sure you have the best time. It's kind of what I do here.
And obviously I get that it's supposed to be a parallel between them, but just having one Charlie was already overwhelming enough, so having two is just a lot. She offers Sir Pentious a bunch of superficial stuff. It kind of feels like heaven in this show is like a child's idea of what heaven would be like, full of sugar and like cute animals and all that kind of stuff. But Sir Pentious doesn't actually want any of that because all he really cares about is seeing his friends again.
And I see them.
Oh, well, no. I don't think you can.
Which leads us into our next musical number called No One Here Is Like You, which is all about how no one in heaven is like Sir Pentious. This song really sounds like a song you would hear playing in like an H&M. Super generic and overproduced, but I get that's kind of like the point, like how Welcome to Heaven was the same way. Sir Pentious' part of the song is actually pretty good, where he talks about trying to find his way back to his friends. But for the most part, this song is just kind of annoying, which again, I get is kind of the point. But the highlight of it is definitely Sir Pentious slowly coming to the realization that he is stuck forever in this hellscape of infantile pleasures, and it ends with him slowly pulling out a gun and trying to shoot himself only to be blasted with confetti. Honestly, I thought that was really funny. And once again, this reminded me a lot of South Park, specifically the whole Saddam Hussein being sent to heaven thing, where a sinner being sent to heaven is actually a worse punishment than just being in hell. So Sarah is talking to the speaker of God about what she should do because she's totally clueless, and I'm reminded of the fact that Sarah's voice actor is such an incredible singer. She kills it every time, because this leads us into another musical number with her and the speaker of God. It's a very grand and pretty song, but it's not super memorable, and it doesn't really move the plot forward at all. Yeah, I don't think I'm even gonna try to sing this one. I'm not gonna lie. It's also pretty funny because basically the whole song is Sarah asking God what to do and God just telling her, oh, you need to find the answer from within yourself. So Lute is busy angrily pushing past people on the street and banging on a wall to show just how pissed off she is about all this. And this gives us the return of a familiar voice.
Wow, someone's menstruating.
Adam?
You know, there's a lot of really bad and cringe lines in this show, but my god, this was one of the worst ones. I feel like this line could have actually been pretty funny and fit his character a lot more if he had said something more crass. Like if he said, oh, someone must be on the rag, or something like that, but menstruating? Really? I mean, considering his character is supposed to be this dumb dude bro, there's no way he would even know what menstruating means. I don't know, for some reason I just really did not like this line and it made my skin crawl. But we find out that she's actually hallucinating him, and we hear more from them in a little bit. Sarah decides it'd be a great idea to assemble Abel and Peter to help her decide what to do, proving that literally no one in heaven has any clue what they're doing.
What do you think we should do? Abel, as head of the army.
Oh, well, see, I don't much like confrontation, so maybe? I'm pretty okay with either option, to be honest.
Okay, that doesn't help me. St. Peter?
I just watched the door.
Pentious is still feeling pretty lonely, so Gray Charlie decides to make him some knockoff versions of his egg sidekicks, and he takes to them pretty well. So Lute decides to go to Adam's office to make her psychotic episode worse as she goes around breaking more things. And Adam's character in this scene definitely reminded me a lot of another character that I couldn't put my finger on for a long time, and I realized eventually that it felt like he was trying to channel Hades from Hercules with the fourth wall breaks and the kind of flamboyant, sassy attitude. And I love Hades and Hercules, so that's definitely a compliment. But we then go into another musical number, giving us 3 this episode, and it's essentially this season's version of Hell is Forever. Storm's coming, I can see the clouds. No running's gonna save you now, and hard rain is gonna fall down like gravity, like gravity. That one was pretty bad. Now this song is an absolute banger. This is definitely one of the best of the season, if not the best. It's like a heavy rock song. It actually reminds me a lot of like Evanescence. It also had some background vocals doing the Christian Sanctus hymn thing, and that just added to the song. It really made the theming kind of tie all together. And of course, because I have to tie it back to South Park, it reminded me a lot of the Book of Mormon, Matt and Trey's musical, because it also has a song that does that same thing. But yeah, all around, this is an amazing song, like seriously really good, even outside of the context of it being a musical song, and I genuinely added this one to my playlist. So this is Lute's big moment. This is her statement about how she's going to get revenge and burn it all to the ground. just for her to do literally nothing else the entire rest of the season, which I thought was kind of funny because this is such an epic song about the turning point in her character, and they just do absolutely nothing with it. So we then go back to Sir Pentious, who is surprised by Grey Charlie with a makeover of his room, and this whole scene just reminded me of the fact that Sir Pentious is objectively the best and funniest character in this entire show by far.
A little creepy, but perfect.
He's one of the only characters that doesn't really talk like all the other ones. Like, he still swears, but not nearly as often as everyone else. So they don't try to do those jokes as often with him, and because of that, I think his character is just way funnier. Now, it's not like even this scene was ridiculously funny or anything, but I feel like it just proves that this show could actually be pretty funny if they didn't try to lean on vulgarity as a punchline so often. But Sarah ends up making an announcement that heaven is locking its borders and that no one can get in and out without express permission, and they do this weird ritual to put a giant like shield around it. And I didn't think much about this when I first watched it, but when I rewatched it, I thought about it and was like, wasn't that already the case? Like, wasn't the whole point of heaven that it's exclusive and no one can get in and out without permission? What's a big force field gonna do? I feel like I'm kind of turning into CinemaSins, but really this just doesn't make sense. It kind of feels like they just did this for the sake of the plot, that she made a decision, and it just kind of annoyed me. But the episode ends with Grey Charlie going to tell Real Charlie about everything that's happened, and that's where the end of episode 1 left off. This episode was just okay. It felt very average. All the music was average besides Gravity, and while it did give some context for everything going on, it kind of felt like it didn't progress the plot forward like at all. But with that, we can now talk about episode 3. So now with all the setups and reminders out of the way, we finally get to move this plot forward. We pick up where we left off at the end of episode 1 when Grey Charlie came down and told Real Charlie that redemption is possible. Charlie is still as SpongeBob as ever, running around the hotel telling everyone about the fact that redemption is possible. And she comes up with the genius idea to clear their name by getting Vox to come do an exclusive interview about how sinners can be redeemed. I can't possibly see how this could go wrong. Now, if you thought Charlie's character was overwhelming like I did in the last 2 episodes, well, you're in for it because they ramp her character up to 11. Like, she has surpassed SpongeBob at this point. She is on her own level of just overbearingness.
I'm 1,000,000,000,000,000% sure! I said this amazing, Tacky! Oh, I cannot wait to see the look on Dad's face when he finds out!
We then see Vox and Velvet reacting to Charlie's email, and I guess Velvet's like a witch now. She's stirring a cauldron. I don't remember that ever being introduced in the last season, and I don't really get how it correlates with her like social media thing, but I guess she's a witch. I don't know. We also find out that Cherry is kind of jealous of Sir Pentious and is kind of into him, and honestly, she has one of the better character arcs of the season. I think her dynamic with Sir Pentious is super interesting, and it works super well. So the V's show up and immediately begin questioning Charlie, manipulating her into giving them the answers that they want to hear just so they can make her look really bad.
And that the Morning Stars currently dislike 98% of the population of sinners.
Dislike sinners? What? I mean, my dad
hates sinners. Interesting.
Again, as I mentioned before, the commentary they're making here is not exactly subtle. So Charlie drops the news on them that redemption actually is possible, but of course the only problem with that is that she has absolutely no way of proving this claim. And again, I'm reminded that Vox's voice actor is probably one of the best in this show.
I can't broadcast this without proof. But the last thing I want to do is spread misinformation.
So when the V's go to leave because of the lack of proof, Charlie decides out of nowhere that actually we're going to redeem someone right now. Now you may notice there's a small little issue here, and that's that they have absolutely no idea why Sir Pentious was redeemed. So Cherry goes to talk to Baxter after she heard that he used to work with Sir Pentious. And honestly, I did think that this joke was a little bit funny.
We were partners.
So you were like...
What? Lab partners!
Although it's kind of weird to be defensive about being gay in this show, considering like everyone is gay apparently. But we learned that Pentious ended up leaving Baxter because his experiments were getting too cruel, and instead he focused on his turf war with Cherry Bomb. This leads us into a musical number with Pentious reminiscing on his time fighting with Cherry Bomb. Alright, I can't really do a Sir Pentious voice, so I'm gonna try my hardest. They say time heals all wounds, but the wounds are what I miss. 'Cause every brush with death meant much more than a kiss. And it eventually turns into a duet with Cherry reminiscing on the same thing. This is another banger. I'm a really big fan of this song. The lyrics are very intentionally cheesy with them reminiscing about beating the piss out of each other. It really leans heavy on the frenemies vibe. And lyrically, it actually reminded me a lot of the Nemesis song from Phineas and Ferb. But musically, this song is great too. I love Cherry Bomb's pop punk Avril Lavigne vibe. And the voice actors are both incredible singers. numbers, so all around this song works super well. It honestly just feels like a way better version of the Vaggie and Camilla duet from last season, which I didn't hate, but it was definitely one of the weaker songs from that season. So when Vaggie and Angel find out that Charlie invited the V's into the hotel, they're not exactly happy about it. Vaggie tells her that this is a horrible idea, and Angel is on the verge of a panic attack telling her not to do this, but Charlie just doesn't care. And look, I get that Charlie is supposed to be super naive and thinks that no one has any ulterior motives, but it's just so infuriating. But it's just so infuriating. Yeah, I said it right. It is just so infuriating when she is hearing literally everyone around her tell her that this is a horrible idea, and she's just refusing to listen to them. Like, she's just straight up ignoring the advice of her friends who know exactly what these people are capable of, and instead is choosing to believe the people that have been knowingly slandering her in the news. Like, obviously she was kind of stupid and misguided in the first season, but in this season she is just unbearably dumb. So because Angel is the closest to being redeemed, Charlie begs him to try to do it right now. And even though I am slightly annoyed that Husk for some reason is agreeing with Charlie, I do like that they show that he clearly cares about Angel Dust still, specifically that he wants Angel Dust to be redeemed. This leads us into another musical number where Charlie goes through the steps of trying to get redeemed. Step 1, say you'll get it done. Make redemption your resolution. Step 2, bid the booze adieu. A sober mind's primed for absolution. And obviously at this point I've talked a lot about the similarities with South Park, but this song is literally just It's Easy MK from Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. Like, these two songs are so similar going through the steps of how to become a better person that I am 100% certain that this song was directly inspired by that one.
Step 1, instead of ass, say buns, like kiss my buns or you're a buns hole. Step 2, instead of shit, say poo, as in bull poo poo, head in this poo is cold.
But this song is just decent. It's pretty mid in my opinion. The best part is when Charlie realizes that none of this is working and decides to just make him literally become Sir Pentious. I thought that was kind of funny, but other than that, this song is just eh. So the genius plan that she comes up with is to dress up as an old-timey villain and tie Husk to train tracks just so Angel can save him. And when I was watching this, my first thought was, is she forgetting that Pentious literally died? Like, that seems like a pretty important part of the equation that she just sort of looked over when creating this plan. This is just so incredibly stupid, but I will say the one part that was funny about this was Husk and his deadpan delivery, because he's always pretty hilarious when he gets put in situations like this.
Help, I'm stuck! Oh, whatever.
But Charlie, on the other hand, is just being so incredibly annoying. Like, I understand why they're making her character this way, because she just found out that redemption is possible and she takes some of the responsibility for that. So now she's just totally blinded by her ambition to clear her name and prove that she was right this whole time. But I feel like they could have done that without making her just so irritating. This whole scene really feels like they're trying to make her funny and quirky with her like manic behavior, but it just isn't funny, and because of that, it makes her look so unlikable.
Charlie? Who is this Charlie character? The diabolical Danny Doobad does not listen to our friends.
So then Vox reveals that he cut the brakes out of the train, so there's no way to stop it, and now Husk actually is in danger. So Angel decides that the best way to save him is to just stand in front of the train like that's gonna do anything. But in the end, Vaggie just swoops in to save both of them from the situation. And now Husk is super pissed off at Angel because he put his own life in danger trying to save him, which to me felt a little contrived at first, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like it actually matches his character pretty well, because it definitely seems like Husk has given up on himself essentially and instead has just focused his energy on making Angel better. But then he says this.
You pull shit like that again enough, I'll fucking spank you.
Pull what shit?
I'm sorry, what the fuck was that? What an absolutely insane thing to say. Like, that felt like it was supposed to be a setup for Angel to make one of his cringe sex jokes, but this is such a serious situation and no one acknowledges that. Like, why would he say that? I'm definitely adding that one to the list of the worst dialogue in this season. We then get a literal slow clap from Vox, and it's just like, God, could they make this scene any more cliche? And Charlie finally comes to the realization that everyone else did a long time ago, that maybe what Pentious did redeemed his own personal sins, and that's why he got to heaven. It just annoys me that it takes so long for her to figure that out, because that's like literally rule number 1 of Christianity. Repenting for your sins is how you are forgiven for them. That's like the whole point. But then Vox drops the big reveal as to why Angel is in hell in the first place, and it's because he killed his dad. Okay. Is that supposed to be some kind of like huge shock? Not to mention the fact that Vox sets up the fact that Angel might have been abused by his dad as well. And for me, this felt like a little bit of a cop-out. Like, kind of the whole theme of the show is redemption, and if it's possible for the worst people. And I feel like if this show really wanted to explore this theme of redemption, they should make these characters do some really evil shit. It would make their characters way more complex, and by trying to redeem someone that did something really bad, it makes it way more interesting and explores this topic so much better. Like, Charlie's whole thing is that anyone can be redeemed. She even says this about Vox immediately after this scene. So why don't they put some really evil people in there that want to be redeemed? Like, I want to see Epstein in the hotel at one of their therapy sessions. I think that would make this way more interesting instead of just giving all these characters an easy way out with an easily redeemable story. I feel like this is kind of a consequence of having set like villains in this show, because by having the villains just do the actual bad shit, you're making a distinction between what is and isn't redeemable, and I feel like that kind of defeats the whole point that Charlie's trying to make. But anyways, Angel is pissed off at Charlie now because she made Vox reveal this, but again, it's like you're in hell. That doesn't really seem that bad in comparison to what a lot of these people did. But the episode ends with Vox releasing his news story, and of course it just makes the hotel look a million times worse than it did. And then Cherry visits Angel, revealing that she actually plans on staying at the hotel, which I didn't even know she was questioning that, honestly, but sure, I guess. So that was episode 3. I didn't like this episode very much, if you couldn't tell. The only thing I really liked about this episode was Penchus and Cherry's duet. The other song was pretty mid, and the story just felt so contrived, and Charlie was so annoying. So now let's move past this episode and go into what is hopefully a much better episode. We're off to a pretty bad start, as Charlie is once again ignoring the advice of those closest to her just so that she can try to clear her name again. But this time she thinks it's going to be different because she's going to do it in a live interview. And at this point, I feel like I'm just repeating myself by saying that Charlie is such a goddamn idiot in this season. So instead of just continuously saying that over and over again, just know from here on out, anytime Charlie does something, it was probably a dumb decision and I hated it. We then get reminded that, oh yeah, Alistair is a character in this show, as we get this scene of him getting ready in his room with his shirt unbuttoned and a big scar on his chest, and he's literally smoking a cigarette and drinking whiskey. For my notes on this scene, I literally just wrote in all caps, they are trying to make him sexy. This just further confirms my theory from the last video that VivziePop models all of these characters after Tumblr sexy guy. This isn't even really a critique, I just thought it was kind of funny, and it's definitely supposed to be some kind of fan service, I feel like. But when Alistair finally emerges from his weird room, he is met with Lucifer, who's like his arch enemy from last season. And I actually did think it was funny how they have contradictory cups saying that they basically hate each other. I thought that was a nice little touch. But Lucifer manages to piss off Alistair so much that he just ends up quitting from the hotel. I thought this was kind of weird because this dynamic felt a lot better when Alistair was mostly unbothered by Lucifer and really only cared about one-upping him to get under his skin. But Alistair actually being affected by what Lucifer has to say just felt kind of weird, and it made their dynamic feel a little worse. So Charlie takes Nifty with her to go clear their name on the news. And I gotta admit, I did think it was kind of funny that Nifty's cue card literally only says Vox lies, hotel is good. I also thought that Katie Killjoy's recurring bit of her being like subtly homophobic was pretty funny.
It is Miss, right? Because we all know queers can't get married.
What?
I'm here with Charlie Morningstar, homosexual daughter of our big old devil daddy.
Firstly, I'm bi.
Now, obviously, this joke is just barely even edgy, but it goes to show that I feel like if this show was more willing to be edgy instead of being so sanitized, it would be a lot funnier. I also thought it was funny that Charlie felt the need to clarify that she's actually bi, because she wouldn't truly be a bi woman if she didn't mention that every single time someone brought it up. But of course, this interview goes exactly how we expect it to, and Charlie just basically allows herself to be bullied throughout it. We then see Alistair pay a visit to his old friend Rosie with a new fit on, and I gotta say, I love their dynamic of being like politely threatening to each other. It feels very like mob-esque. And when he tells Rosie that he quit the hotel, it's revealed that he can't actually quit the hotel because he's in some kind of deal with Rosie, which transitions us into Alistair's backstory, which we learn that he had a radio show and was a serial killer in his spare time. He also dabbled in some voodoo rituals, and that's how he ended up getting in contact with Rosie as she was already in hell. And a quick note, it is so weird to hear his voice without the filter, it just sounds so wrong.
I call on you, voices of the afterlife. I wish to make a deal with you.
We find out that knowing he was going to hell, he made a deal with Rosie to be the most powerful sinner in all of hell, as long as he does something for Rosie, but we don't know what that is. Also, quick question. Why does Rosie have the power to make him the most powerful sinner in hell? Like, obviously she's a very powerful overlord, but I wouldn't have guessed that she has that kind of power to make him literally the most powerful sinner in all of hell. But his story ends with him getting mistaken for a deer while hiding a body and being killed by a hunter, which explains his weird furry character design. I do like how they kind of emphasize how powerful Rosie is in the fact that she doesn't feel the need to keep him on such a tight leash. It's kind of contradictory to the people that Alistair has made a deal with, and I think it's kind of a sick flex. This leads us into a musical number with Rosie basically telling Alistair to remember who exactly he's dealing with because he's basically her pet right now. Don't you forget.
I won't forget.
You are my pet.
Yours since we met.
I say when to sit or stay, play ball or just play dead. This is a pretty great song too. I really like the old school show tune vibe and how the entire thing is basically just Rosie humbling Alistair. I thought it was pretty funny and it was a great song. But because Alistair is so insecure about not having power, he throws a little temper tantrum and starts plotting on how exactly he's going to get out of this. Also, I really liked the little plaque that they had for Susan. I thought that was a nice touch. Charlie is busy absolutely floundering her way through this interview, so she decides to bring Nifty in to give a first-hand account on how great the hotel is, which calls back to this weird little quirk of her character, the fact that she just freezes anytime she's on camera. I thought it was kind of funny, and I like that they never explained this because it makes it funnier. But that gives us Nifty's first musical number of the entire series, and honestly, the song itself was just okay, but I actually did think that it was pretty funny how they made her basically become an anime princess halfway through it, with them even switching up the art style to be more anime. And of course, this reminded me a lot of South Park when they make Princess Kenny have his own like anime princess theme song. But yeah, the song itself was just okay. I did think it was pretty funny though. And speaking of anime, Alistair decides to stroll into the center of town and calls out Vox to their final anime battle. You know, every time there's like an action sequence in this show, I can't help but feel like it feels out of place, but at the same time, they're so incredibly well done that I don't mind it. Like, not only is this super well animated, but I just love the theming of the characters' attacks and how they all correlate with their personalities. I honestly feel like Vivzy Pop would be way better as just like a character designer for an anime or something, because again, these designs are just super cool and I love how the powers correlate with them. In the middle of the fight, we cut back to Charlie arguing with Katie, and she actually has a very funny line here that I appreciated.
You are very homophobic, Miss Killjoy, and I do.
I'm not homophobic. I just hate gay people.
But Nifty realizes that Alistair is in trouble and goes to get Husk to help him. Husk is just casually chatting with Angel Dust, and I gotta admit, even though this is a super short scene, I really liked it.
Have you ever heard of a blobfish?
What?
Check this out. How cute is that?
Why are you like this?
I just really like this more casual dialogue between the two. It just feels super real and genuine, and I wish that these characters would do this kind of stuff more often to make them feel like actual real people. So Nifty and Husk join the fight with Alistair, and I gotta say that Husk's powers are probably my favorite. I love the Vegas gambling and magician aesthetic. I think it's really cool. And once again, I am left questioning why Velvet is supposed to be a witch and where that even came from, but anyways. But the V's end up getting the upper hand, and because of this, Alistair proposes his deal. This deal being that Vox gets to keep him as a prisoner as long as he doesn't lay his hands on Charlie. Now, obviously, this was Alistair's plan the whole time, so my question is, what was the point of doing all that fighting before this? Now, don't get me wrong, it was a sick scene, but like, if he was just gonna propose this deal anyways, why didn't he just go directly to him to propose the deal? My only thought is that maybe it was the only way he could get Vox to believe that he wasn't trying to scheme. But even still, I feel like they established that Vox is so obsessed with taking down Alistair that he probably would have just taken the deal without even questioning it. But of course, Vox does take the deal and immediately goes on a press tour declaring how he's won over Alistair, and he is so excited about it. And once again, Vox's voice actor really sells this. I love how enthusiastic he is about it. It makes it pretty funny.
I know I won. I know I won. I'm like winning.
He also randomly says this at one point.
And let me be the one to tell the world that Alistair does not have a tail.
Oh, that's gonna piss some people off.
This felt kind of weird and out of place. I'm assuming it's supposed to be some kind of meta joke for the fans. I'm sure they've been debating whether or not Alistair has a tail, but I have no clue. But also, what do you mean by that, Vox? What exactly is the implication here? You can confirm that he doesn't have a tail? How did you confirm that? Is that supposed to be implying what I think it is? Because that's pretty fucked up if it is. We also get confirmation about what they've been hinting at, that Vox is actually gay, because this is Hazbin Hotel. I also thought it was funny that they literally make Alistair sit in a cuck chair. Kind of feels representative of Alistair's character throughout the vast majority of this season. But of course, even from the cuck chair, Alistair is just as annoying as he always is to Vox, reminding him of how he's completely powerless without his helpers. We then finally get the backstory as to why Vox hates Alistair so much. And you know it was a long time ago because his head is a CRT TV instead of the flat screen. They basically make it seem like Vox really admires Alistair, even hinting at the fact that he might be into him, and he proposes a deal to Alistair to work together as a team, and Alistair absolutely crushes him.
I knew you could be pathetic at times, but I didn't realize you were so weak.
What?
This was pretty brutal, with Alistair just absolutely embarrassing him for even thinking about asking for help. Basically, he sees it as admitting that he's not powerful enough on his own. It really highlights the different philosophies between the two, how Alistair is reliant on only himself, and Vox believes that he's most powerful with others. And this leads us into the final musical number of the episode, with Vox reprising Rosie's song about Alistair being his pet. And then he also reprises his Up There song from earlier in the season, this time with like a weird trap beat. Didn't like that part too much, but overall this song was pretty good too.
Don't you forget.
Oh, here he goes.
You ain't won yet.
Ooh, I'm scared.
You still need me like you did before.
So cute you think I care. I feel like Alistair's inclusion in songs throughout the show has always been kind of the worst part of the song for the most part, but in this song and in Rosie's song, I feel like he just makes them better and it really works well. But that is where the episode ends. And overall, this was definitely a much better episode than the last one. I still hated pretty much everything Charlie did in this episode, but honestly, I think it worked a lot better because this episode was just a lot funnier. I really enjoyed all of Katie's subtle homophobic digs, and Vox's celebration tour over Alistair was pretty hilarious too, and the songs in this episode were pretty great. So that was pretty good. Let's move on to episode 5. So episode 5 gives us our first opening musical number as all the overlords in hell are hearing about the fact that Vox has defeated Alistair. So Vox goes around to all these overlords trying to appeal to them to get them to join his fight against heaven, and the song switches up genres depending on who he's appealing to. I thought it was kind of funny. The song overall is just okay. What I did think was funny though was Vox trying to appeal to Camilla with a sombrero and maracas, and at the end of the song the other Vs are telling him not to do that because it's like offensive.
Stop it.
And this kind of highlights another issue I have with how this show is written, in the sense that it gets annoying whenever they make a even slightly edgy joke and they have to point out the fact that what they're saying is bad. Like having the other Vs tell Vox to stop doing that just feels so wrong. Like these guys are rapists and murderers, and yet slightly offensive stereotypes is where they draw the line. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier with how this show just feels like it's trying to be edgy but in a sanitized way. Like I went back and watched some old Hazbin Hotel stuff like the pilot, and it was clear that back then it was a lot edgier and it was a lot funnier because of it.
Don't get your taco in a twist, baby.
Was that you trying to be sexist or racist?
Whatever pisses you off more.
I feel like Vivzy Pop is just too scared to potentially offend anyone in her very sensitive audience. And because of that, anytime she makes a joke that could potentially be offensive to anyone, she feels the need to clarify that actually that's a really bad thing to say. It annoys me because it just feels like it's infantilizing its audience, which to be fair, I mean the majority of the audience is a lot younger. But I just wish that Vivzy Pop had the confidence in her audience to understand that it's supposed to be bad without her outright saying it. But at the same time, given the audience that this show has garnered over time, that is pretty much impossible to actually expect to happen. So Charlie decides now that her only course of action is to literally just look at the sky and give an SOS and hope that Gray Charlie sees her, which of course does absolutely nothing. So Vaggie sees Charlie absolutely losing it and decides to try to help by going to Lucifer. And okay, seriously, what is up with the ducks? Is that supposed to be just like his autism special interest, or is there a reason that he's obsessed with ducks specifically? I would expect them to relate it to his character in some way, but I can't think of anything from the Bible that would explain an obsession with ducks. I just don't get it. Maybe the whole point is that it doesn't make sense and that's just supposed to be his random obsession, but I don't know. So Vaggie asks why he doesn't just go to Vox and basically like smite him, and he reveals that part of his punishment as Lucifer is that he can't harm any of the sinners and that he's just stuck with them. So Vaggie says, well, why don't you just go down there and intimidate him a little? It's not like he knows that, and I don't see how this could possibly go wrong. Meanwhile, in heaven, Gray Charlie decides that the best course of action to prevent any kind of uprising in hell is to just go apologize to them. So the ingenious plan that she and Abel come up with is to go give them gift baskets as an apology. They go see Charlie, and Charlie tells them that Vox is having a rally currently and that they should go to the rally to apologize to everyone publicly because, of course, using Vox's platform to apologize for something has never gone wrong before. So Vox is busy setting up the rally with the other Vs, and I actually did like this joke that they made.
So, you have the dancers ready?
And they're 10s plus 1 8 for diverse adversity.
Alistair immediately begins manipulating him, telling him that, oh, he can't do this all by himself, he still needs help, essentially trying to get him to take over the whole operation. And just another nitpick I have is that Vox is just so susceptible to Alistair's manipulation, and I get that's kind of because of all the envy he has for him, and the fact that all he cares about is proving Alistair wrong, but at the same time, Vox is also a charismatic manipulator. You would think that he would be able to see through Alistair's manipulation a little bit, considering it's pretty much exactly what he's doing to all of hell right now. Again, I guess it makes sense for his character since he feels this need to prove himself to Alistair. It's just kind of crazy to me that he never suspects Alistair of being up to anything with all this. So as Vox starts his rally, Lucifer decides to interrupt with his intimidation techniques, leading us into a musical number where Lucifer is doing his best James Hetfield impression, and the whole song kind of sounds like a Metallica song. 'Cause I'm the serpent, I'm the flame. The mortal world is scared to say my name. But Vox immediately sees through Lucifer's bluffing and just doesn't even react to it. Instead, he's able to manipulate the narrative by calling himself a victim and making Lucifer out to be a tyrannical king. And he has this line, which was just a bit on the nose. She knew hell could be great, and we can make hell great again. You know, with how all of this has been building up, I was just waiting for the moment when they would make this parallel, because apparently every show that does any kind of social commentary has to do a Trump parallel of some kind. It did kind of make me roll my eyes, but at the same time, it wasn't anything major, so I can look past that. But this was another pretty solid song. I loved Lucifer's part of it. I think it was definitely the superior part. Vox's part was still good. It just was kind of the same as most of his other songs have been at this point. But I do like the moniker of Vox Populi. Obviously, it's a little on the nose of him branding himself as a populist to manipulate hell into achieving his own goals, but I thought it was a pretty funny way to do that. But right then, the Angels and Charlie show up to try to apologize. Their plan, of course, being to just come in and literally say sorry and hand out gift baskets. And of course, Vox is able to take this and be like, you guys are just coming to give us gift baskets to apologize for your genocide? It seems a little insincere considering you guys only decided to do this after we were able to fight back for the first time.
Hollow, vapid words, mocking us with trinkets, thinking that could ever make up for our fallen sinner brethren.
And what's annoying about this scene is that Vox is totally right here. Like, obviously he's still using this to manipulate everyone into following him, but they were committing a genocide, and now they just expect their apology to go over well. Like, this was the worst plan ever, and it just further highlights the issue I have with how this narrative is being told, because the only reason anything ever happens is because all of the good guys are totally incompetent. But of course, there is still one way they could fix all of this. All they have to do is say that, oh yeah, Sir Pentious is in heaven, and sinners can be redeemed. And by saying that, it would prove that Vox has been lying about Charlie and manipulating everyone this entire time. He would immediately lose all of his credibility. So of course, how does Sarah respond to all of this?
Sinners like you are the reason I allowed for the extermination in the first place.
Oh, she just says the worst possible thing that she could have ever said in this situation. They never say anything about Sir Pentious in this scene. Why did they not say it? That was the whole point of all of this. Instead, they just float there as Vox riles up everyone into a full-blown uprising. It literally feels like they are actively trying to make this situation worse. And another thing, why couldn't they have just brought Sir Pentious? Earlier in the season, Grey Charlie says that Pentious can't go back to hell, but they never explain why. So instead, while he's right there encouraging them to go apologize to everyone, they just leave him there. Like, they completely refuse to bring Sir Pentious, but they decide to bring along the racist one who's just gonna make everything worse. Like, what is the decision making here? This immediately brings us into Vox's grand finale musical number, and this visually is like the coolest moment in the whole show. This was so sick. I just love the parallel of his own like angel-like form, showing that he's ascended to the godlike power he's been searching for. This was visually stunning and probably one of my favorite moments from the entire season. And then of course the angels just go back to heaven, having made everything significantly worse. Charlie goes back to the hotel and is super pissed off at Lucifer for trying to get involved in this, and she's also pissed off at Vaggie for encouraging him to do it in the first place. She's so pissed that she basically cuts both of them off and tells them to stop interfering in her plans and that she can do it herself, which again, I feel the need to clarify. I understand why they're doing this, because I know the comments are going to be like, oh, you don't have any media literacy, you don't understand why she's acting this way. I get it, but it doesn't make it any less annoying just how irrational and incompetent she can be. Like, she knows she would be absolutely nowhere if it weren't for the help of these two people specifically. I do think this is kind of supposed to be a parallel with Vox, how he's been gaining all of this power and starting to cut off the ones who helped him get there in the first place. And now Charlie's doing the same thing, starting to cut off all of her friends and only making everything worse. And obviously she's going to come around on it and make everything better with the power of friendship or whatever, and Vox is going to self-destruct. But man, in the process of doing this, they have made her the most insufferable character in this show. But that is where episode 5 ends, and despite my criticisms of how this plot is moving forward, I actually think this was a really good episode overall. It had a lot of really good musical numbers numbers. And I do like Vox's character. He's essentially become the main character of this season. And the fact that he's able to recognize just how incompetent everyone is and capitalize on it shows that he's maybe the only character in this season who has any idea what they're actually doing. At this point, I'm pretty much rooting for him because I don't know who else I'm supposed to root for right now. But with that, let's jump into episode 6. So we open with Vox giving us some exposition about Lilith, explaining that she was rallying people against Heaven before she disappeared. He's trying to appeal to Camilla Carmine, who supplied the weapons to the hotel in the previous season, and basically trying to get her to build a giant weapon for them to use against Heaven. He does the super cliche Game of Thrones thing where he's like, war is coming, and you're either with me or against me. And they set up in the last season that Carmilla's whole motivation for helping with anything is caring about her daughter's safety, which I think are her daughters, I don't really know. And honestly, even though it's super simple, this is one of the better character motivations in the series because I think she's totally valid for this. I mean, if I thought my family was going to be put at risk in a war, I would just join whatever side was going to win too. I mean, I can't blame her for that. I also love how literally every time Carmilla is on screen, there's like a Spanish guitar and castanets in the background, just to remind you that she's Latin. Don't forget, she's a Latina woman. Ironically, this kind of feels more racist than the bit that Vox was doing in the last episode. So at the hotel, Vaggie is busy doing literally everything to keep it running. And we see that Vox runs a news story about his new partnership with Carmilla, and I will admit, this bit made me laugh.
Vox Tech loves women in STEM.
Charlie's still mad at Vaggie, so they literally do that middle school thing where they tell him, oh, if you see her around, tell her how I feel about this, when they're literally back to back with each other. Like, what are we doing here? And it reminds us that Husk is one of the only characters in the show that actually has a functioning brain.
I'm so fucking done with this petty high school bullshit. I'm out!
This annoys him enough to literally just quit from the hotel, which he can do now since Alistair isn't around, and Charlie gets back to watching the news where Vox continues to spread his propaganda.
My mom never wanted violence. She empowered sinners. Peaceful protest. There was no blood.
So I guess Lilith was supposed to be like the Martin Luther King of hell or something, I don't know. So with nowhere else to go, Husk decides to relapse and hits the casino. We also get this cool little voice cameo from a certain yellow man.
Oh my fucking god, that was my fucking hell mortgage on my hell house! Fuck!
But this immediately leads us into a Husk musical number, which once again is one of the best songs from the season. Love is in the eyes of the beholder, gin never lies or fucks you over, it goes down the same every time. I swear Keith David's voice is just so smooth, it works so well in this kind of jazzy vibe. It opens very similarly to Loser Baby, but then transitions into that more jazzy sound, and it actually reminds me a lot of Keith David's other song from The Princess and the Frog. I also really like this song lyrically, how the only real love that Husk will ever find is in a bottle, especially since they kind of set up for this back in season 1.
Look, if you got a problem, you're not going to find the solution at the bottom of a bottle. I should know, I've been looking there a long time.
My wife also pointed out that this song weirdly sounds a lot like the Fairly Odd Parents song, which I kind of hear it now. But yeah, once again, this was another banger of a song. I really like this one. It was also super cool visually. I really liked all the neon like line art. I thought it was sick. So Vaggie and Charlie go visit Camilla and ask her why she's siding with Vox, and we basically get the same explanation we got earlier, that she's just trying to protect her people. Not much really happens in this scene, but I did like Camilla's line at the opening.
I don't have time for this lesbian drama. What is it you want?
But Husk has officially fallen off the wagon and decides to watch a beautiful lady perform at the casino.
See you, baby.
We then get Angel's first official song of the season, and it's like a sultry kind of doo-wop song, and it immediately reminded me of the song Love on the Brain by Rihanna. It felt very inspired by that. And you can't help falling, going all in though your odds are bleak. This is another great song. It's super pretty. Blake Roman is an incredible singer, and he absolutely kills it on this song. But this part of Angel dressing up in drag did make me think a little bit more about something I've kind of been thinking about for the entirety of this show. And I'm going to be careful when saying this because I don't want it to come across like I have some kind of problem with Angel being a gay dude, but this really made me wonder, what is actually the point of having Angel be a male character? Now hold on for a second, don't go to Twitter immediately, let me explain myself. Angel is portrayed so femininely to the point where he's essentially designed like a woman because of the chest fluff. I've always wondered, why not just make him a woman character? Now again, obviously I don't have an issue with him being a man, but I feel like to a certain extent, it almost undermines his character as a gay man when he's essentially written and designed exactly like like a more typical woman character. I feel like him being a gay man could add some depth to his character, especially since he was supposed to be gay in like the 40s. You'd have to imagine that he was absolutely nothing like this on Earth because that would not have been okay at the time. And I feel like even having him struggle in hell to get over those feelings that he's repressed in the real world might make for some very interesting character development. And I feel like it's kind of odd to never dive into this at all when sex is such a major part of his character. I mean, it's kind of like his whole thing. Now again, obviously I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. It really doesn't matter at all if he's gay or not. I just feel like there's a bit of missed potential in the way that he's written. But I am curious to hear what other people think about this because it's not something I've ever really seen anyone say. So let me know in the comments. Do you think I'm making sense at all, or is this just all nonsense? I also did like at the end of this song when Zach Hadel says this line.
Wow, that was hot. Wait, does that make me gay? I'm not gay, am I?
I thought it was weird because I found this funny, but this is the exact type of joke they usually tell in this show that I don't laugh at. And it makes me wonder if a lot of the cringe from the show is because of how they emphasize jokes too much, because this delivery was just really good. We then go back to the V's where Vox is trying to convince Val to help him with his plan. And also, I just now realized that Val has an actual pimp hat now instead of like the weird top hat combo that he had in the last season. And I would like to take full credit for this change because that was one of the critiques I had of the last season. But Val and Velvet are starting to get annoyed by Vox and how he's kind of hijacked this plan to be all about him. And Val actually had a really funny moment in this scene.
Ay, qué estúpido demonio con ese estúpido. You know I can't understand you when you speak that island language, Val. Anyone else got shit to say? I'm from fucking Florida.
I like how it kind of further established the fact that Vox is like slightly racist. And this just felt like a way better version of the joke they did earlier with the sombrero. So we then go back to the hotel where Charlie finally apologizes to Vaggie for how she's been acting. And normally I'd be a little critical of this because it is kind of unnatural and comes out of nowhere. Like there was no setup for her to have this change of heart all of a sudden. But honestly, at this point, I was so sick of how Charlie was acting. I'm just grateful that she's kind of going back to normal. And then Charlie says this to Vaggie.
My mom... Look, this hotel was my way of finishing what she started. I think I've been trying so hard to hold on to it because if I could make it work, maybe she'd be proud of me. And maybe she'd come back and tell me what I did to make her leave.
And that's another thing that kind of annoys me about this show. I just hate how they feel the need to over-explain everything. Like, yeah, you've been talking about your mom's mission and calling her every single episode for the majority of the season. Like, I feel like most people would have understood this by now. You really didn't have to spell it out for us. But then Vaggie goes into a jump scare of a musical number. The song was just fine. It was really nothing special. It's a pretty generic love song. It is super catchy, but for the most part, pretty forgettable.
Anyone who finds love in hell can do anything. Baby, you and me don't need no one else to make it through the crazy. No blow comes close to fatal for this princess and fallen angel. We already found love in hell, the rest is easy, baby.
This also weirdly turns into like an implied sex scene, which was... I don't know, it just made me feel kind of weird, which it really shouldn't because the show talks about sex all the time, but when it comes to like actually showing it happening, it just feels so out of place for some reason. And for whatever reason, Vaggie's hip movements here make me incredibly uncomfortable, and I don't know why. Back at the casino, Angel chats with Husk about what he's doing here, and this line from Angel was actually really funny.
I'm a man of many jobs, one of them being a woman.
But this scene is just them kind of accepting that they're losers again, which they already did in season 1, but it makes more sense here considering how much they improved last season, only for them to kind of return to this state of mind. Husk and Angel's dialogue has always been some of my favorite in the show because it feels very authentic and genuine. Like if you take out the non-stop sex jokes from Angel, they just feel like normal people talking to each other, and it's very refreshing in this show. Now they also hint at the fact that Husk might be into Angel since he's like blushing and looking him up and down, which like I said in my last video, I kind of hope we never get that because I just really love their dynamic of being bros and helping each other. I feel like this is kind of a symptom of Vivzy Pop's Tumblr brain and like the shipping aspect of it, and that she just wants everyone to be a couple all the time. I don't know, for some reason to me it feels even more endearing for this to just be a platonic male friendship. But I mean, I still love their dynamic either way, so it's not like I'm gonna be upset if they become a couple. So Angel has to leave because Val tells him that he has a client, and I did really like this line from Angel when he enters the room.
You want me to come find you? Or are you just like really small or something?
I don't know why, but the idea that it's a very real possibility that it's just a really tiny person looking for him was pretty funny to me. But this humor is cut short when it's revealed to be Vox, and we get yet another scene of Angel getting the shit kicked out of him. And at this point, it's like, my god, this dude just can't catch a break. Can they have anyone else be the subject of the brutal, hyper-realistic abuse scenes, or is it always going to be Angel for the rest of the show? It's like, I get it, his life sucks and he gets abused all the time. Why do they have to show it every single time? It just gets hard to watch. We then find out that Vox has been using his Sharingan to put Angel in a genjutsu and essentially use him as a sleeper agent, and he's been spying on everything going on at the hotel this entire time, which is why Vox knew so much about, like, Lucifer not being able to hurt him. The episode ends with Vox using an AI voice of Charlie to convince Lucifer to come meet with him for whatever he has planned. And that was episode 6. All around, another pretty solid episode. I really liked this one. It had some really great musical numbers, one that wasn't as great, but it was still fine, and I feel like it's doing a good job of setting up for this ending. So now, let's get into episode 7. So the episode opens with Lucifer walking into a giant empty warehouse and standing on a big red X on the floor to meet with Charlie, which of course makes no sense that he would fall for this. But at this point, I've accepted the fact that every single character in this show is an idiot, so although Lucifer is a particular idiot in this season, it really feels like they already Flanderized his character, because in the first season, he was kind of just like a quirky dad who was still competent to some degree, but in this season, he's just a total idiot. His stupidity in this scene was at least funny because he basically acknowledges how stupid he's being, so I'm willing to look past it a little bit. But they have a little back and forth, which doesn't really reveal anything besides the fact that Lucifer is going to be used to power the weapon. And then we get a musical number which coincides with the telling of Vox's backstory. Now the song is probably the worst one in the season in my opinion. Again, it's not terrible by any means, it's just like super forgettable. But seeing his backstory was pretty interesting. They basically show him climbing the ranks of showbiz, not through the usual like underhanded tactics of slighting people and all that kind of stuff, but instead by being a literal serial killer, taking out everyone above him. Now, obviously I know it's supposed to be a bit of a hyperbole to show how much of a sociopath he is and how he's willing to do anything for power. And I don't necessarily mind it, but objectively, this is just kind of ridiculous. I did also really enjoy the reveal that he died from a TV falling on his head while he was basically giving a sermon to his cult followers, and the fact that he had heterochromia, which kind of explains why he has different eyes. But yeah, this was a pretty cool sequence. I just didn't really like the song that much. Back at the hotel, they see a broadcast of Angel endorsing the V's and basically condemning the hotel because he's being hypnotized. It was kind of weird to me that they all seemed very surprised that he would turn on them like that, but I don't know why any of them would believe that Angel is saying this stuff of his own free will, especially considering he's endorsing Val when he always talks about how much he hates Val. So Vox reveals his new giant weapon that Carmilla made him, and he immediately fires an orbital strike at Heaven. Turns out that big iron dome Heaven put up wasn't very effective because it goes straight through it and blows the pearly gates right off. And Vox sends a message to Heaven, basically giving them 24 hours to either give up Heaven or be exterminated. And of course that means that all of the leaders of Heaven are back to hyperventilating and having panic attacks instead of actually doing anything useful. And of course, Abel shows the consequences of being a dirty fence sitter nowadays.
The answer here is clear. How can you even say that?
You know, I think you both make some good points.
No, she doesn't.
Sarah is busy praying because she doesn't know what to do, so Sir Pentious comes in and decides to try to give her some advice. This gives us a musical number between Pentious and Sarah. And once again, this was another pretty solid song. Every song that's had Sir Pentious so far was pretty great, so it's no surprise, and Sarah's voice actor is once again an incredible singer, so they kind of kill it on this song. Something had changed in you deep within. How does a guilty soul shed their sin? It starts with sorry. Ding, ding. And obviously it was pretty corny, but I really did like when Sir Pentious brought back the "it starts with sorry" thing that Charlie told him. Aside from the fact that Sarah is completely incompetent, I do actually really like this character dynamic, because honestly, it makes sense that Sarah would be willing to look to Sir Pentious for help. I mean, if you think about it, Sir Pentious was redeemed after committing essentially the same sin that Sarah has been committing. They both watched people die and sat back and did nothing about it. So since Sir Pentious was redeemed, it makes sense that he's willing to help her get over that guilt. And also, coming from hell, obviously he knows what it's like to be a victim of the executions, and he's still willing to forgive her. So honestly, I thought it was pretty sweet, and I really liked this song. But what makes it pretty funny is that the grand conclusion that Sarah came to after all of this character development is to try to resolve it peacefully at first, and if it doesn't work, then send the exorcists. Like, wow. What an ingenious plan. I'm sure no one else could have come up with that without finishing their character arc through a musical number. So Alistair is still rage baiting Vox, telling him that he's not even the strongest person in hell and is totally useless without all his friends. And he ends up convincing him to invite Charlie to the big ceremony that they're gonna have tomorrow. Vox tells her that her dad is there, so she knows she needs to go to save him. So then Gray Charlie falls out of the sky and gives her an exposition dump about everything going on in heaven. And she has the idea to broadcast a video of Sir Pentious in heaven down to hell so that they can prove that he's actually up there. And that's when we get reminded that oh yeah, Baxter is a character that they introduced and did nothing with this whole season. Now he can be useful. Turns out he works for Vox Tech and made all the security systems. So as long as Sir Pentious is able to invent something up in heaven that makes their technology compatible, Baxter will be able to hack into the Vox system in order to broadcast his message to all of hell. I did also think that this bit was kind of funny.
Are you in?
Yeah! Go team!
Yeah, wait. Wait, who are you?
That's Rooster. He's been here the whole time.
It's funny because he really has been there the whole time throughout this whole season. They just never mentioned him. So this brings us to our final musical number for the episode, and it's the epic Let's Prepare for Battle song that has literally every single character in the show in it. And as you all know by now, I'm a huge sucker for when a musical does a bunch of reprises and morphs them all into like one big song. And that's exactly what this song does, so of course I love it. It also has Valentino's first like solo part of a song, which was cool. The most important thing we find out is that Val and Velvet are starting to turn on Vox because they can't stand the way he's acting. But yeah, this song is pretty epic and grand. It's definitely the better version of the Let's Prepare for Battle song than they did last season, and I really enjoyed it. And once again, this was another pretty solid episode. We've had a streak of a few episodes now that I've thought were pretty great. So hopefully, with this grand finale, they can close it out strong. So the final episode opens like a heist movie with them explaining their plan to stop Vox. I really like this overly simple doodle style they use. It reminds me a lot of BoJack Horseman, that one episode. And I just recently found out that BoJack Horseman is apparently Vivzy Pop's like favorite show, so I guess that makes sense. Oh yeah, and this finale is nearly 40 minutes long, which would make it like twice as long as an episode from the last season. It's kind of insane. So they show up to the event, and while Vox is busy gloating to Charlie, Vaggie talks to Carmilla about how to stop the weapon, but she refuses to help. So the rest of the gang splits up with Husk and Cherry going to save Angel, while Baxter and Nifty go to hack into the system. There's a lot going on here with like a million different characters, so try to follow me. Cherry and Husk find Angel, but he's all drugged up and out of it. Baxter and Nifty successfully hack into the system, and Vaggie is busy trying to break the weapon. So they try to start the broadcast to heaven, but Baxter is interrupted by Velvet. And I know I keep mentioning it, but why is she a witch? I really wish they would have explained that. But Nifty's job was to protect Baxter, so that's exactly what she does.
Wow, you're really pretty, lady, but not for long.
And also, this has to be a Hollow Knight reference, right? Like, Nifty's already kind of supposed to be like a bug character, and the weapon she uses looks exactly like the nail from Hollow Knight, and she fights exactly like a Hollow Knight character. Like, 100% this has to be a reference to the game. Also, I forgot to mention it earlier, but I thought this was really funny.
Princess, this is my...
Always wanted to do that.
Husk and Cherry end up putting Angel in a giant sack and try to escape like they're the Grinch, but unfortunately they're interrupted by Val and a Lies of P enemy. All the stuff I said earlier about how cool the fight scenes and all their powers are applies to this too, because all these fight scenes are sick. So since the plan didn't work, Vox insists that Charlie admits that he's the strongest sinner in all of hell, and out of nowhere, Alistair agrees with him and tells Charlie that she should do it. And if you remember last season, Alistair made a deal with Charlie to do one thing for him that didn't hurt anybody, and of course, he uses that right now. So, because she has to, Charlie admits that Vox is the strongest sinner in hell. And with this endorsement from the Princess of Hell, he does become the strongest sinner in all of hell. He then gloats in her face a little bit more and even goes as far as to put his hands on her shoulders. And this would turn out to be his biggest mistake, because Alistair immediately hops up and reveals what he's been plotting this whole time. With Vox becoming the strongest sinner in all of hell, his deal with Rosie is broken because he is no longer the strongest sinner in hell. And since his deal with Vox was that he couldn't lay his hands on Charlie, that deal is broken too. Honestly, I thought this was all a pretty great setup to this reveal. Like, obviously we all knew Alistair was planning something, but it is pretty cool to know that he basically beat Vox at his own game by manipulating him into doing exactly what he wanted him to do. And Vox's response to it was pretty funny too.
You tricked me with a fucking technicality? Seriously?
It worked, didn't it?
Which means now they can finally have the epic anime battle that we've all been waiting for. And honestly, the animation and art here is pretty incredible. This ends up being a super sick fight sequence. While that's going on, Husk and Cherry are still fighting Val, and Husk remembers that Angel told him one time that Val has really bad eyesight, so they manage to knock off his glasses and get the upper hand. But Angel is still hypnotized, so he ends up choking Cherry, but in the end, they're able to snap him out of it and end up taking Val out. Vox and Alistair are still going at it, and Vox calls in his giant shark thing, and while Alistair is distracted with him, he jumps back on that giant weapon and starts shooting it across the city. It basically ends up just eviscerating half the city with the weapon while trying to hit Alistair. At this point, it looks like something straight out of a Transformers movie. Like, this is honestly kind of insane. We then get the super corny montage of Charlie and Gray Charlie going around helping people affected by it. Baxter and Nifty do end up taking out Velvet, and I think the reveal that she's like a mannequin was actually pretty cool. Still doesn't explain why she's a witch though. And just as they're about to start the broadcast again, Vox's laser just eviscerates everything they've been working on. So now the broadcast is entirely dependent on Sir Pentious Prentice and if he can make it work. Camilla sees all the good deeds that Charlie and Gray Charlie are doing, so she has a change of heart and decides to help Vaggie with disassembling the weapon, whose attempts to break the weapon up to this point include periodically tapping on steel with a metal glaive as if that's gonna do anything. But public opinion begins to turn against Vox because, you know, he kind of just blew up half the city. But Vox doesn't even care anymore. At this point, he's so deluded with his sense of power and obsession with proving Alistair wrong that he's willing to blow himself up along with the entire city as long as it means he can wipe the smile off Alistair's face. So now you may be wondering, how are they gonna stop this? Vox has completely lost his mind and is on a suicidal rampage just to get after Alistair. How could this possibly end? Really? That's how you kill the main villain? You know what really pisses me off about this? You had the perfect setup. He's become obsessed with power and blinded by his hubris, only to die at the hands of his own creation, the thing that made him a god in the first place, his weapon. Or even have all of his followers revolt and kill them himself. It would have been the perfect way to end the story, his fate coming at the hands of his own hubris. But instead we just have this anticlimactic moment where Val and Velvet just turn on him because they don't want to die, which of course plays into the main theme of this season with friendship and how if he hadn't turned his back on all his friends, then they wouldn't have done that. And in a way, he kind of was stopped by his own hubris because he turned on his friends. And even this wouldn't have been too bad of a way to end his character. It's just the way they went about it. It just feels like they tried to play this as a joke, and it was just done in the worst way possible by trying to shock us. But it's not quite over yet because the weapon is still going to explode and there's nothing that can stop it. Except, just maybe, the power of friendship.
Raise your voice like a fire till our hopes and fears reach 1,000,000,000 years.
Now I'm just going to go ahead and read directly from my notes while I was watching this episode for the first time so you can kind of understand where my thought process was. No way. Oh my god, what the fuck are we doing here? Jesus Christ. My Little Pony ass ending. But psych, pause all the friendship stuff because Lute is here to do her specialty this season, which is showing up, being super pissed off, and then immediately being put in her place by a superior and pouting the rest of the time she's on screen. This is when Abel completes his character arc, which I mean, I guess they were kind of setting up for it throughout the season with him just kind of being a pushover. But still, if they were planning on having this moment of him finally standing up for himself, then I feel like they should have set up for it a little bit more. But he's definitely the best part of this musical number, which I forgot to mention they're in a musical number right now. His part sounds exactly like a Fall Out Boy song, and I do like that he kind of channeled his father in the last moments. Okay, so this just blew my mind. I didn't know this, but I just looked it up because I was wondering who the voice actor for Abel is. It's Patrick Stump, the lead singer of Fall Out Boy. No wonder it sounds like a Fall Out Boy song. It pretty much is. But anyways, thank you, Lute, for stopping by to do absolutely nothing once again, so back to the power of friendship. I will continue reading directly from my notes for this part. And of course, even the bad guys join in to save the day to fucking worship music. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, bro? Now I'll give some more coherent thoughts on how I feel about this in a second, but let me just say first, this song is also probably one of the worst ones in the whole show. Like I said in that note, it kind of sounds like worship music without the God part. Abel's part is really good, and Alistair and Rosie's part is pretty good too. But other than that, this song is pretty bad in my opinion. Now don't get me wrong, the song is still well made, it's just like offensively bland and generic. Now listen, this show does a lot of corny shit, but this tops the list. I mean, what even is this? Everyone suddenly has these weird laser beams that they can shoot out of their hands that for some reason can disable a nuke. Like, I know I talked about how last season the message was maybe the real Hazbin Hotel is the friends we made along the way. And that was corny as hell too, but it was a lot more subtle there. They didn't have fucking friendship beams coming out of their hands in a circle to save the day. Like, what are we doing here? This is literally something you'd see in My Little Pony. What is this? Now, obviously, I've had a lot of issues with this season, but it was all mostly stuff I pretty much expected, so I've still enjoyed the season a lot. But this, combined with Vox's anticlimactic ending, has just soured me so much. Like, I just genuinely don't even know what else to say about this besides, what are we doing here? How did we get here? How did they think this was a good idea? I don't understand. So Sir Pentious finally gets the broadcast working, and the rest of hell gets to see him up in heaven, and I did kind of like this bit.
I'm a good boy now.
Also, admittedly, Cherry and Pentious do have a pretty sweet moment, and I liked it. The major change we get at the end of the season is that Angel is leaving the hotel because now he knows about all the sleeper agent stuff, and he's worried that he's going to hurt his friends again. And now the hotel is also filled with people who actually want to be redeemed since they saw that it worked. And I haven't really talked about it much, but throughout this entire season, it was like a thing that Vaggie's trying to change her name since Adam gave her the name. And I guess the name that she decided on was just Vaggie without the E at the end, which sure, man. Whatever. I don't care. It also kind of seems like they're setting up for Val to be the main antagonist of next season. And of course, Lute is still pissed off, so I'm sure we'll see her again. And the very last thing we get from season 2 of Hazbin Hotel is seemingly Lilith calling Charlie back. And with that, we are officially in the exact same situation that we started this season, except now Angel Dust isn't there. It's weird because it seemed like so much happened in this season, all for it to just be like, never mind, let's just restart. I don't know. It was just, for me, a very disappointing ending to what felt like it could have been a really great season with the right ending. Like, if they had really nailed this ending, I honestly would have been able to overlook pretty much all of my criticisms I had of this season, and I think this would have been a way better season than the first one. But man, they fumbled this ending so hard. And considering everything kind of just returned to how it was before, I'm going to make some predictions for next season that I guarantee will be correct. Alistair will have some secret plot that we don't find out about. Angel Dust is going to get the shit kicked out of him 1 or 2 more times. And Lilith will still be mysterious. Maybe this time she'll give us a line, but who knows? I don't know. I feel like I've said pretty much everything I have to say about this. And remember, I still did like this season. I know I've been incredibly critical of it, but regardless of that, it's still an entertaining show, and there are a lot of things I really like about it. It's just like, to see how they made this season and didn't really address a lot of the issues from the first season, it makes me a lot less hopeful that anything will actually change moving forward. Like, I'm still holding out hope for the 3rd season, and I'm gonna watch it regardless, but it's hard to believe anything's really gonna change, and I kind of just have to accept that this is what Hazbin Hotel is. Not a bad show necessarily, but also not a great one, even though it has the potential to be. So, I guess we'll see. Now, let's rank the songs. Alright, so I decided I'm going to do this live in like a tier list fashion because I think that would be the easiest way to do this. I found this tier list on Tier Maker. I will link it below if you want to do it yourself. And also, I got this ad when I was doing this. I don't know if they're trying to tell me something, but honestly, I understand. Alright, so there's 20 songs this season, which is more than last season. And in last place, I am going to put Like You. This is the only song that I feel like I really dislike. It's just very annoying. The only part of it that I enjoy is Serpentius's part, but even that is not really enough to carry it out of being in the bottom tier. Visually, I think it looks pretty good. I like the Heaven aesthetics, but musically and lyrically, it's just very uninteresting and not very good. So then at number 19, I have Brighter. Now, I didn't dislike this song, but this song is just probably the most forgettable one of the entire show. There was nothing wrong with it, and visually, it's probably one of the coolest with Vox's backstory going on in the background, but musically, it's just very unremarkable. I'm not a huge fan of like the electronic backing track. Overall, just a very forgettable song. At number 18, I have Speedrun Redemption. Speedrun 2 Redemption. Again, nothing wrong with this song per se, it's just pretty uninteresting. I do like the idea of like listing off different ways that you can be redeemed and clearly not succeeding, but another pretty forgettable one. Then at number 17, I have Hear My Hope. Now, I don't know if this one's going to be controversial. Like I said, this is a well-made song. I can tell there was a lot of care put into it. It is just like so incredibly generic with the big booming drums in the background at the last half of the song. Like I said, it really just feels like a worship song without the worshiping. The only reason I didn't put it behind like Brighter and Speedrun to Redemption is because I really enjoy Abel's part, and I also like Alistair and Rosie's part because they switch it up and don't do the super generic part, but overall, not great. Now in the 16th spot, moving up to the C tier, we have Clean It Up. Again, another pretty inoffensive song. I thought this was actually a pretty funny song with the Japanese like anime switch up they do, but this one doesn't move the plot forward at all. It's kind of just there for the bit, which is totally fine. It just isn't one of the better songs from the season. Then in the 15th spot, I have Easy. Now this one I'm kind of conflicted on because it is super catchy and musically just, it's like an earworm, but it's just very unremarkable. In terms of visually, it's okay. In terms of moving the plot forward, it's just average. And even musically, even though it is catchy, it's nothing like impressive necessarily. Then in the 14th spot, I have Bad With Us. Now this is a super fun song. It's just Vox going around convincing everyone to be on his team and be bad with him. There's a lot I like about this song. I do enjoy the way it switches up into different genres and all that kind of stuff when he's appealing to different people. But some of those switch ups are a lot better than others. Like I don't really like the electronic one that much, or the more country western sounding one. But overall, this one's just a pretty fun song. I'm not going to hate on it too much, but I'm not going to praise it too much either. So now we move to the B tier, and we're starting to get to the good stuff. And starting off the B tier at number 13, we have the Hazbin Guarantee Trust Us. This was a pretty good way to open the season. I think the V's part of this song is definitely the superior part of it. I think it's super interesting visually, storytelling wise. Now in the 12th spot, we have Vox Die. Get in there. Like I said, this is probably visually the coolest moment of the entire show. I love Vox's aesthetic with his wings and the angel parallels. Musically, it's just very short, so it's hard to rank it super high because it's kind of just a reprise of the beginning of Vox Populi, but it does really capture that epic, like, triumphant evil sound that they were going for, and I think it does it really well, but it's just a little too short to rank any higher. In the 11th spot, we have Live to Live. Now, Sir Pentious had a lot of really great singing moments in this season, and this one is no exception. And of course, Sarah's voice actor, like I've said a million times, just an absolutely incredible singer. Visually, it looks pretty good. Story-wise, it doesn't really move the story along that much because all she ends up doing is just like the most obvious thing to do anyways. But still, I do like their dynamic of Sarah and Pentious kind of bouncing off of each other and making each other feel better. Overall, another really solid song. Then in the number 10 spot, we have Once We Get Up There. I really like this song. I like that all of the V's are singing on it. It's a really good way to set up Vox as the villain for the rest of the season with his plan on taking over heaven. I think the melodies in this song are super good with Vox singing about getting up there. I think all that's great. Lyrically, it's pretty interesting. He kind of spits some bars on this one. Overall, another really good song. And then the last song of the B tier is going to be Don't You Forget Reprise. Now, I went back and forth between this one and Once We Get Up There, but I think this one edges it out because I really like Alistair's part and how they go back and forth. I think this and the original Don't You Forget are the best Alistair has sounded on any songs, and lyrically, this is one of the most interesting songs as well. Vox essentially gloating about how he's going to do this, and Alistair reminding him that he hasn't quite done it yet. And I also appreciated the little reprise that we get of Stayed Gone at the very end, because Stayed Gone was one of my favorite songs from season 1. So yeah, that rounds out the B tier, and that's another great song. So in the A tier, we're getting to the really good stuff, and to start it off, we have When I Think About the Future. As I've said a million times, it is impossible for me to not like a song when it reprises all the other songs from the rest of the musical, and they kind of make it into a melody. Every single time, it just works so well for me, and that's exactly what this song is. And everyone's part sounds great. Lucifer's part, Lute's part, Vox's part, even Charlie's part is pretty great. It's super grand, and I really enjoyed this one. Then in the number 7 spot, we have Vox Populi. I really love the intro with Lucifer and the kind of Metallica metal sound. I honestly wish we got an entire song of just that sound with Lucifer. I think it would have made for one of the best songs in the show. But even still, Vox's part in this is super fun, super interesting. This is a very Broadway-esque song with all the dancers on the stage. And I really love how accurately Vox can read everyone and just manipulate them into believing him. I think in terms of writing, this is definitely one of the best songs in the show. Then at number 6, we have Don't You Forget. I just love Rosie's voice so much. She's always super fun on songs. And the old-timey like show tune theme of this one really nails their aesthetic. And again, Alistair is super good in this one too. It's super cool to see someone actually have the gall to talk to Alistair this way and be completely correct about it. A super fun song, one of the best from the show, definitely. At number 5, we have Sarah's Confession. Now, in terms of writing and like progressing the plot, this one is one of the weaker songs. It doesn't do that much, but musically, this song is absolutely incredible. Both of their voices are so good. It works so well as like this grand, like almost comforting song, especially the Speaker of God. Her voice is so like motherly almost. And I didn't really talk about it earlier because honestly, I kind of forgot, but visually, this is one of the most stunning parts of the show. So while this song doesn't really move the plot forward much, just by the vocal performances alone, I would feel bad not to put it up this high. And for the final song of the A tier, at number 4, we have Losing Streak. I mean, Blake Roman's voice is just so incredible. I have no clue how he's able to hit those notes like that. I tried my hardest, it did not go very well. This really just sounds like a love song that you would hear on the radio in a very good way. It reminds me a lot of Poison in that way, even though it's an entirely different genre. It's still just this very radio-friendly but well-made pop song, essentially. I think lyrically it works pretty well too, with him basically talking to Husk. And of course, the Husk and Angel dynamic is just one of the best in the show. So overall, fantastic song. And now to start the S tier, in the number 3 spot, we have Piss, a Love Song. Now, I don't know if this is going to be unpopular or not. I feel like this wouldn't be a very popular opinion, but this song is an absolute banger. Lyrically, this is one of my favorite songs. I love the friends to lovers dynamic that they have, and how what they really miss is their battles they had together and how those were the greatest times. It's honestly very heartfelt and sweet, albeit a little cheesy, but honestly, that just makes it more endearing to me. This is a super fun song. I love the Avril Lavigne like punk rock aesthetics of it, and it's just a really great song. Then coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Love in a Bottle. I mean, what am I I supposed to say about it? It's Keith David singing like Keith David. He kills it every time. His voice is just incredible. It can never be replicated. Lyrically, it reminds me a lot of Loser Baby to some extent, in the sense that it's him basically being at rock bottom and kind of just embracing that comfort of being at your lowest point. I love the jazzy instrumental. Again, it reminds me a lot of that Princess and the Frog song that Keith David also did. Easily one of my favorite songs from the entire show by far. Then at the number 1 spot, probably to no one's surprise, is Gravity. I don't know what I can really say about this song that I didn't already say in the video. This is an incredible song regardless of it being a musical song. This is just an all-around fantastic song. This might be my favorite song from both seasons. I don't know for sure. It's hard to put anything above Loser Baby because I just love that song so much. But in terms of purely like musically, this song's probably better. Now, I debated between this song and Love in a Bottle at number 1. And honestly, the only reason I even debated that is because of how out of place this song kind of ends up being. Like the fact that Lute does literally nothing else the entire rest of the season. And it makes me sad that that's the case, because if they had just saved this song for when she actually was going to do something or made her do something this season, then there would have been no debate at all. It would have been S tier by far. But here, the only issue I have with it is that it doesn't really do anything narratively because nothing ends up coming from this. But purely from a music standpoint, this is the best song in the show by far.